everybody, I'm Jonathan. I'm joined today with Dynasty Al and the Doc. We're going to be doing our Dynasty Spotlight series. Dynasty Al, tell a little bit about the Spotlight series.
Sure. So really, this is something that the Doc and I have always been really passionate about. It's just kind of watching these college players come up throughout their college career and enter the NFL. So basically, each week we're going to be highlighting a prospect. Some of the top name guys like Trevor Lawrence and Justin Fields, but also probably hit on some of the smaller name guys, but just talk a little bit about their, college production, their draft profile, maybe some pro player comps, and just kind of top destinations, where we think they might land in your rookie drafts this summer. But really just highlight some of the up-and-coming talent that's going to be hitting the NFL next year.
All right, good stuff, Dynasty. With that said, we're going to start right at the top of the list. This next guy, he's bringing comparisons, Peyton Manning, John Elway, some of the greats, perhaps one of the you can't miss quarterback, Trevor Lawrence. Going to start with you, Doc. Is the hype real on Trevor Lawrence?
I think the hype is very real on Trevor Lawrence. And on paper, you mentioned some of those guys like Luck and Manning. I think he's the next one in line in terms of being that perfect prospect. He's a great athlete. He's got the prototypical size. He's got the prototypical arm, the accuracy, the decision-making. The dude's a winner. He won a national championship as a true freshman, and not to mention all of that, he's a pretty solid athlete as well. He can run. Not to bring up a sore subject, but all the Ohio State fans, I'm sure they remember Trevor Lawrence just streaking down the field, running like a gazelle. He's a smooth athlete. He's fast. He can do everything you want out of your quarterback. And, he's the real deal. He can do it all. He's about as close to a perfect prospect as you can get. And I think he's the closest one since Andrew Luck, like you mentioned. He's that good. And I don't really even know what else to say about him because his play does it for himself. Now, I don't know if you want to add anything. But
I don't really have anything. I think you said it all. He's the total package. He's the real deal.
Mm-hmm.
He's got it all. Everything you could want. Perfect
Yeah, we would
prospect.
actually consider dubbing him the total package.
Yeah.
Seems to have a little bit of it all. I will say, I still think he got a little bit lucky in that Ohio State game, as do my Buckeye fans out there. We're going to move on, so we're going to look at some possible landing destinations. The Jets did everything they could this weekend to almost mess that up. The most likely landing spot for them. But first we're going to talk about Jacksonville, which very, very well could end up. If he did land in Jacksonville, who do you think benefits the most?
Honestly, everyone in Jacksonville, but mainly the receivers. I look at DJ Shark and Laviska Shenault. Those are two guys who, have really been. I know Chenault's just a rookie, but DJ Shark has been really held back by below average quarterback play. But he's a guy with a great ceiling, a lot of talent. You bring somebody like Trevor Lawrence in, I think that does a ton for his dynasty value moving forward. And then Laviska Shenault's a guy who was awesome in college. He would have been on this Dynasty Spotlight show last year if we had it, because the Doc loved him, I loved him. But adding a guy like Trevor Lawrence in, I think would be great for Laviska Shenault, and then even James Robinson. More red zone trips. Just some of the James Robinson has seen some loaded boxes this year because all they've been doing is hand the ball off to James Robinson. So I think he's a guy who could free up some running lanes and really just Jacksonville franchise. Who don't you want if Trevor Lawrence is there?
Yeah, absolutely. And not to mention, they have a very underrated offensive line. And I've said before, I really like Jay Gruden as a play caller, so assuming he's still there next year with their coaching staff intact, that's huge for all the weapons of that offense with Trevor Lawrence. He would just be able to pick whichever one he wanted and put up some big numbers from the jump.
Yeah, I agree. I think it would be across the board. Pretty much every player, wherever he goes, is going to benefit from a Trevor Lawrence signing. I actually really like the James Robinson take, though. It's a guy we've spoke about in depth. I'm not really believing in him. I think a lot of that is to do with the Jacksonville offense. And I just think a Trevor Lawrence signing there, I think you'd see a guy like him shooting up the draft boards.
I completely agree. We talk about the value of Clyde Edwards-Helaire. He's attached to Patrick Mahomes for the next 5 years. All of a sudden, the up-and-coming, the truth, Trevor Lawrence lands in Jacksonville. All of a sudden, James Robinson goes from that undrafted rookie to the guy who's attached to Trevor Lawrence and, an exciting offense for the foreseeable future.
All right, it's a great point. We're actually going to move on to the New York Jets now, where he's most likely going to end up. If he comes out of college this year, that's something do you think with New York at the top? Now, I'm going to ask that, is there any chance that he stays?
So not really, no. is there a chance? Sure, it's been a crazy, weird year of college football, but I see him coming out. I know what you're saying. A lot of people say this every year with some of these top quarterback prospects. You know, for a while it was when our Brownies were picking number 1 overall. They were like, oh, you know, do you stay in school to, you know, not go to Cleveland? But I know the Jets have been a disaster, but I mean, we're still talking about New York City, and I mean, just from a marketing standpoint, I mean, this is one of the, you know, the mecca of the country, and it's New York, you know, Joe Namath, and there's still some, even though there's been a lot of bad football recently, it's still a franchise with some history in New York City. I think it's still an exciting destination.
Mm-hmm.
Obviously, we expect their coaching staff, their front office to be gone. It's going to be a new start across the board. I think we're going to see free agents who are pounding their table wanting to go to New York once it's clear that Trevor Lawrence is the quarterback of the future. I even look at, you know, who are some of the fantasy relevant players who might go want to play for him. And Allen Robinson's a guy I just keep thinking of, you know, assuming Trevor Lawrence is, you know, the shoe-in number 1 overall pick and you're Allen Robinson and it's March. Sign me up to go play in New York City with Trevor Lawrence for the next 5 years. I think it's an exciting destination, and, you know, this year has been awful, but I think if you're a Jets fan, there's positive days ahead. Bright future.
Yeah, a great point on Allen Robinson, and I do agree that if he signs in New York, I think it will be a place guys want to go play. As currently constructed, though, who do you think benefits the most from a Trevor Lawrence signing?
To me, you know, you think all of their weapons they have. I mean, Brashad Perriman's the guy they brought in. I mean, he has had some trouble staying healthy. I mean, their offense has just been so inconsistent, and I feel like that's going to change once they get Adam Gase and company out of there. He's going to be a big benefactor of getting Trevor Lawrence. Denzel Mims, who John Bees brought up a few weeks ago on our podcast, that's a guy that's, I mean, he's kind of showing what he's capable of, showing you that the draft hype wasn't just draft hype. He's a legit player if he can stay healthy as well. And then you got guys like Jamison Crowder, who, I mean, have been solid with Darnold in this awful year. All of those guys benefit. I don't really think there's any, you know, drop off with any of those guys. You could only really go up, and assuming they get a better coaching staff in there as well is a big positive. And they've already put some guys on the offensive line like Becton to help protect that investment as well, so that's huge. In terms of other people that benefit, I mentioned his name already, but Sam Darnold, he's a guy that, you know, Lawrence gets brought in, Darnold's most likely going to get shipped out, and it's been a rough, rocky start to his career, basically just because lack of weapons, horrible coaching, couldn't have been in a worse situation, basically. But he's a guy that still has a ton of talent, and he could, I mean, there's plenty of different destinations he could end up in, whether it's, you know, like Indianapolis, taking over for Phillip Rivers. Maybe he goes to a team like Pittsburgh. I know Alec and I have talked about that quite a bit, just kind of worrying that he could be the guy that takes over for Big Ben. And there's plenty of other teams too. Denver with Drew Lock, you never know. I mean, there's plenty of different options for Sam Darnold out there, and I mean, all of them on paper seem better than the Jets right now. So, I mean, that's a big winner in this whole scenario is Sam Darnold, because his career all of a sudden has life again.
Yeah, great points. And we had actually spoke about Trevor Lawrence a few days ago. I thought you brought up some really good points on some possible coaching changes that can make a huge difference there.
Yeah, absolutely. So, I mean, you know, every year we're trying to figure out, you know, who are going to be the hot coaching candidates. But, I mean, Eric Bieniemy's name has been circling around forever. We saw what Andy Reid did for Patrick Mahomes in Kansas City, and Bieniemy's been, like, a huge part of that offense. Not to take anything away from Andy Reid, but Bieniemy's been there for years, was a big part of the reason why Alex Smith kind of had a career resurgence there. It's a huge reason why Mahomes has been as fantastic as he's been. So you bring Bieniemy into a place like New York, pair him with a Trevor Lawrence. I think that's super exciting. All of a sudden, you know, could this be one of the more exciting, you know, fantasy football offenses in the league? I think it's possible. The doc actually has mentioned Joe Brady possibly being a coaching candidate. I don't know if you want to elaborate more on that.
I think Joe Brady is an excellent offensive mind. You saw what he did with LSU last year in Joe Burrow. I mean, he's made Teddy Bridgewater, I mean, he was a top 12, I think he was top 11 quarterback in fantasy before he got hurt a few weeks back. I mean, Joe Brady knows his offense. He's a young guy. He's a smart guy. I don't think he's going to be an offensive coordinator much longer. I wouldn't be shocked if New York threw some money at him and get a fresh face in there, a young guy to kind of build towards the future with. because I think he's that guy.
Yeah, I think they're great takes, and even if it's not one of those guys, I think you could look for the New York Jets to make an upgrade across the board. You bring in a talent like
Al Robinson.
you bring in a talent like Trevor Lawrence.
Oh, yeah.
I mean, the next thing you're going to do is upgrade the coaches.
Right, yeah,
and I do
absolutely.
think if all of those things happen, I personally think Trevor Lawrence has a spot to be the 1.1 pick in upcoming rookie drafts. I know the emergence of Patrick Mahomes, the Kyler Murrays as of late. I feel like it's trending towards quarterbacks having more value. In upcoming rookie free agent drafts, where do you guys envision Trevor Lawrence going?
So, it's hard to say what's too high, but for me, I have a hard time taking him before the middle of the first. So I think mid to late first. But you mentioned the success of Kyler Murray and Patrick Mahomes, and kind of, these quarterbacks are more valuable than ever. And I completely agree. There was nowhere you could have taken Kyler Murray that was too high in his rookie draft. The only thing that I kind of worry about, though, in terms of these quarterbacks is, we have Patrick Mahomes, we have Russell Wilson still playing at a very high level, Kyler Murray, Justin Herbert emerging, Josh Allen. I mean, the list goes on of these quarterbacks playing at a high level. The top tier of quarterbacks keeps getting bigger. So in a way, is all of their value coming down a little bit because you don't need just Mahomes if you can, Josh Allen threw 4 touchdowns the other night. So it's kind of, I just feel like it's almost like the tier of elite quarterbacks almost getting too crowded. But I absolutely think Lawrence can join that group and, work his way towards the top of that group. Absolutely.
I agree.
Yeah, I like that point, and for that reason, along with some other reasons, I think I would take Lawrence probably like late first, maybe top of the second round. And it's nothing against him. It's more, even though the weapons in New York are decent, I mean, who's going to be running back going forwards? That's a question mark. I don't know who their coach is going to be. As solid as some of those receivers are, there's nobody that really wows me. So for that reason, I think, Trevor Lawrence to me is a guy that I wouldn't invest a high pick on at this point right now. Now, maybe Bieniemy comes in. Maybe they sign Allen Robinson, like Alec has mentioned. That changes everything to me. Then I'd probably bump him up in the draft. But as things stand right now, I think I'd take him end of the first, top of the second.
So pretty much where Joe Burrow went this year.
Yeah.
So, yeah, which I agree. I don't think I would have taken him at 1.1. I'm just looking into my crystal ball. I'm just seeing a change with quarterbacks.
Right.
And I just wouldn't be surprised at all to see him go at 1.1 next year. And maybe if you're holding on to the 1.1 pick, maybe look to shop it around because of that. Just a thought.
Yeah.
I definitely think it's intriguing.
All right, good stuff, guys. That's going to wrap up today's Dynasty Spotlight on Trevor Lawrence. Next one we're going to be doing is Justin Fields. Thank you so much for listening. If you can, hit the like button, hit the subscribe button. Come be a part of the Masters family with us.